Hi, this is Stephen Hawks at the Pottery in Douglas, Georgia, on my mother's land. These are the glazes that I have right now, and a couple of them are sort of tests but I did put them on something. Like this is one of the tests, and it is a matte glaze, but it's kind of dull. And I kind of want it a little more interesting. I might add some colorant to it, or I might add some flux, or both. And that's another example. Now this one, it actually looks okay, but it's probably not everybody's taste. It looks a little bit like some older ash glazes that I had, but it's not an ash glaze. It may have some. Because I don't really know what it was. It was an old glaze that looked really dull, so I added a little bit of a clear glaze to it. Yeah, and so I'll go through each one and talk about each one. So this is my dark blue. I have an example of it right here. This has a little bit of light blue at the bottom, but at the top it is the dark blue with some black over the rim. The light blue is this one, and you can see I did do some slip underneath to show it, but that's basically what it looks like. And here's an example of the light blue. Here's the new ash glaze that I've been working on, and it has a lot of similarities to my Cone 10 to 12 ash glazes, and you can see it's kind of runny. Now this came out of the test that I did earlier, which you could see in my films. If you look them up, look up the one with the glaze tests, and this is what it looks like on the back of one of my face jugs. So it's it has a kind of a classic ash look. It's a little bit dull, but it's very similar to some of the now on the front I brushed it on because I wanted the teeth to come out differently and the eyes. But so it's thinner, but it does kind of pull and run, but it doesn't run too much. It's just right in terms of the running. It veins like a typical ash glaze. Looks quite a lot like it was wood fired. I'm using a kind of a dark clay, so it has some of the look of wood firing, but it's only because it's an ash glaze, and I use a darker clay body. I also have, this is the white glaze here. So the white glaze, I believe that I combined it with clear here because it's really a true matte, and for some of them I want it a little bit more glossy, and you can see how it's a little bit more fluid at the bottom there. So this one right here is a green, and I had a little bit of trouble with this glaze because it was a little too thick and it pulled away. So I have a good example of that, and it's actually really dark. It's almost black, and I could lighten it up some by adding some things to it, but you can see how it pulled away here. I may or may not refire this because it has that look of being rugged like some of the face jugs from the past. This is my scrap glaze, and I have taken this from UTRGV, a sample of it. They have so much of it, it wasn't a loss, and it was like I could have just thrown it away. My director told me to throw all the scraps away. I had like a huge 50-gallon container of it. These two look very similar, and they're one is a red iron, which I mark them on the bottom, and this one looks like a red iron, but it's actually when it was first made as a purple, and I kept changing it, and it was really dark, and I'm not really sure why it looks so similar to the red iron. The red iron is okay. It's not quite as red as I might have wanted it in the beginning. This is my clear glaze, and you know, I try and figure out what to do with the materials that I have, and this was actually made with just a few ingredients: Bursley borate, ball clay, I think kaolin, feldspar, maybe, and flint. Maybe not the kaolin. I think it was just ball clay. I can't really remember. I ran out of kaolin here, so I don't really have any. So it's a clear, and it shows the color of the clay. So that's my clear. The black is really good black. I've doctored it over the years, so I don't really have recipes for a lot of these because they're kind of dumped together. So I needed good tiles that were real representations of it. You can see that the slips that I made up only really show up on the clear, and they're not really strong colors except for the blue. That was supposed to be a black slip, but it's actually more brownish green. That's supposed to be green. It's copper, and then white over here, which you can see it. It needs to be a little thicker, I think. So I think that's all of it. Yeah, those are all. That's all the tests that I've done, and I can tell a lot better now what works and what doesn't. So I won't have to refire as many pieces. And then I'll start making some brighter colors soon. I do have a few bright colors, but I only have small amounts. That's why I didn't do tiles for them. This is one of the Hope stones. That's my daughter's name for them. They're worry stones, so you're supposed to carry them around in your pocket. She has a whole explanation of them. But the red works okay, but it was just a small container. I also have a small container of a crawl glaze, which I use for texture on a few things. It turns everything a little mattish. And then I had this yellow, which I used with a clear glaze over in some pieces, and it works okay, but it bubbles some if you don't have enough melting glaze over it. And then an orange, which you can see the corner of this one has orange on it. So I only had small containers of those, and I'll run out of them soon, so I didn't bother making test tiles, and I know what they are, so, and I know how they work too, so I need to put like a thick clear glaze over this or something else that's more fluid so they don't have that texture, because they kind of feel too rough for the worry stones. Although that might be interesting for somebody to have one that has rough and smooth on it. Anyway, that one's kind of nice. That one is not. That has a little texture, but it looks pretty good. Anyway, that's my tests, and my tiles, actually, my tiles to show me what the glazes are that I have, more current than the ones that I have on the buckets, which I've altered over time. Thank you. This is Stephen Hawks. You can like and subscribe if you want. I'm not like real adamant about that yet. I'm not really sure how this, you know, the kind of like building an internet reputation goes. I try and be more and more organized as I go along, because I do a lot of haphazard stuff, and I still experiment a lot, and I'll show you one of those in another video that I experimented on that I think is really interesting. Alright, thank you. Goodbye.